guess I can start now, Andre?
No, give me just a second.
Okay.
Okay, Jane, you're ready.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Planning Advisory Committee meeting for this evening, June 2nd, 2021, and it's 4:30. We have present member Neri Paquette, Tom Rowe, and myself, so that makes a quorum. We have the Director of Planning, which is Doug LaPlante. Good evening, Doug. And we have Doug Goodrich as a guest. And who would the second person be?
Mr. Arden Blackburn.
Blackburn, okay.
Blackburn.
Welcome, Mr. Blackburn. So I think I'll start the meeting. I'll open the meeting. If I have a mover and a seconder.
I'll move
Moved
it.
by Neri, seconded by Tom, member Rowe. That the Planning Advisory Committee meeting be opened at 4:30 p.m. All in favor?
Yes,
And carried. Okay. Okay, so we'll adopt the minutes from the regular meeting held May 10th, 2021. If I have a mover and seconder, moved by member Rowe, seconded by member Paquette. That the minutes of the Planning Advisory Committee meeting held May 10th, 2021 be adopted as circulated. All in favor? And carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interest.
no,
Hearing none.
no,
Okay. So there's no presentations from the public. Is there any presentations? Or you want to wait till your item comes up? All right. So we'll move on to the consent applications. We have 3 applications tonight, and we have 2 zoning applications just for our information. So we'll move to consent application A, B7 2021. AP Blackburn Limited for 3 new lots on part Lot 5, Concession 11, being the remainder of parcel 47A8 NIP. Zone rural. Blackburn has owned this property for over 20 years and has not taken any severances from this holding. Comments from Ed Enfield from 151 Maple Road, commenting on accuracy of sketch. Bonfield Public Works attached, and North Bay Mattawa Conservation comments are as follows. So we will review this application. So the application came in, and I think everyone's had a chance to review it. Conservation has sent their notes along with their usual description of the property. The property is found within the Kebuscong River watersheds. There is a small tributary of found on severed lot number 3. See attached sketch. This tributary is regulated by the Conservation Authority under Ontario Regulations 177006. This regulation is pursuant to Section 28 of the Conservation Authority Act of Ontario. It is required that the owners obtain a development, interference in wetlands and alteration shoreline and watercourse permit from this office prior to undertaking any site alterations. Their next point was the site inspection undertaken on the property May 28th indicated that there is adequate room to accommodate an initial and a replacement class 4 septic system based on a 3-bedroom single dwelling family dwelling on each of the severed lots as well as the retained lands. So with that, Conservation Authority is satisfied that this application is consistent with the policies as set out in sections 2 and 3 of the PPS, Provincial Policy Statement. The Public Works manager did express some concerns for the entrance on the retained lands of the severed and would allow entrance off Pelagio Road due to limit visibility on the corner of Maple Road coming from the east and the hill coming from the west. The proposed Part 3 of the severance has availability for entrance and would require normal approval for permit with diligent placement. And then the proposed Part 2 of the severance was only one place that an entrance would be approved for corners and hills on Maple Road coming from both directions, limits where the entrance can be placed considerably. The approval of entrance would also entail removal of earth to enhance the sight line of the property. So I think, and Doug sends a memo and he attaches the sketch along with the aerial view, which we got. And do I have any questions from the committee?
No,
Doug, is there anything you'd like to add? You're on mute, Doug.
Oh, yeah, I put myself on mute so I wouldn't. On the Public Works Manager's comments, just for clarity purposes, there was no notes added to the resolution because any entrance requires a permit and that will automatically happen at the permit process stage, okay? So there was no need to repeat it onto this because when Mr. Blackburn or whoever applies for the entrance, she will lay it out on the permit that these things have to happen. Okay. Other than that, that's the only comment I had.
Is the committee satisfied?
yes,
All questions answered? I'll go ahead. If I have a mover and seconder, I will read the motion. Moved by Member Rowe, seconded by Member Paquette. The Planning Advisory Committee recommends to Council that consent application B7 2021 PA Blackburn Limited be approved with the following conditions. That this approval applies to the transfer as applied for, which shows 3 new lots on part of Lot 5 Concession 11. 2, that the following documents be provided. A, an original executed transfer, a duplicate original, and 1 photocopy for our records. B, a copy of the survey plan deposited in the land title office be required if required. C, an electronic copy of the survey emailed to cboplanner@bonfieldtownship.org. D, a schedule describing the severed parcel attached to the transfer for approval purposes. 3, if there is a forest road situation, a 20-meter road allowance or whatever amount is required for the road purposes shall be transferred to the municipality at the owner's expense across the whole lot or parcel for which the severance was taken, and compensation shall be awarded as per the compensation grid for the transfer of forest roads. 4, that the building setbacks for all buildings must meet the requirements of the zoning bylaw for the retained and or severed lots, whichever are affected at the time of survey. 5, a fee of 5% lieu of parkland dedicated for each transfer document shall be deposited in the office of the clerk prior to the stamping of any transfer document regarding the subdivision or consent for each new lot. For the purpose of determining an amount of payment, the grid to determine payment of up to 5% in lieu of land to be conveyed for park or other recreational purposes shall apply. 6, If any, all tax arrears must be paid prior to the stamping of the transfer document for a new lot. 7, no further severances shall be taken from this parcel unless by plan of subdivision. We have special notes. We have 3 of them. The first one, a certificate of approval as required on Ontario Regulation 332-12 of the Ontario Building Code Act for the sewage disposal system must be obtained prior to development of the property. Second note, a development interference with wetland and alteration to shoreline and watercourse permit may be required from the North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority prior to undertaking any development of the property. Third note, an entrance permit shall be required from the Township of Bonfield Public Works Department prior to development of the property. And so this takes up what Doug had already mentioned. So the permit will be there and she has her notes set out. Are there any questions from you, Mr. Blackburn? You're on mute.
What's that?
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I've listened intently to your presentation. I agree with the content, and I must suggest it's an exemplary effort.
Okay. All right. So any other questions? All in favor?
Yes.
And carried. Thank you, Mr. Blackburn. If you want to stay, you're more than welcome, but your item has gone through.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome and good evening.
We'll just interrupt. Eric will join the meeting.
All right.
Do you want to watch the rest of it?
I'll watch part of it at least.
All right.
How
Sure.
could we, how could I mute that again?
There'll be a mute button. There you go. You did it. Thank you. 442. Good evening, Member Fwizzy. We've already gone through the first application, and now we are on the second application. So we're on B8 2021. Kevin Rose for one new lot on part of Lot 29, Concession 9, Parcel 12080 NIP. Zone Rural. This property has never been severed. Comments from Bonfield Public Works attached, North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority. Comments as follows. So if everyone has had the time to review this application, I will read the comments from conservation. So they mention the property description and then they start. The property is found within the Sharps Creek subwater shed. There is no natural hazard features on this property. It is therefore not subject to Ontario regulations. According to our records, the sewage system servicing the existing dwelling on the severed lands will not be impacted by the severance and will be wholly contained on the property. There is adequate room to accommodate a replacement septic system should one be required in the future. Due to the size of the retained lands, there are no concerns with respect to servicing the lot. Please be advised that prior to development on the above mentioned property, a sewage system permit is required. Then a site inspection was undertaken on the property on May 28th. At this time, it was noted that there was a livestock facility within 700 meters of the severed and retained lands. The minimum distance separating formula is to be minimize odor conflicts between livestock facility and development. The official plan indicates that MDS can be applied at the time of planning and or development review for purposes new development, including lot creation, building permits for development and on an existing lot record, rezoning or redesigning of rural land to permit development in proximity to existing livestock facility on an existing or proposed separate parcel of land. Given the above, council may consider applying MDSI on retained land prior to development. The Conservation Authority is satisfied that this application is consistent with the policies as set out in section 2 and 3 of the PPS, which is the provincial policy statement. And then I have sketch was included with that, and then the recommendation from Public Works Manager regarding the application for consent by Kevin Rose, the proposed severance for 3 new lots on
parking lot at,
P8. This one's 8. On part of lot. This is the wrong one, isn't it, Doug?
It's the right one, Jane. I think she was cutting and pasting because it should say 1 new lot on part of lot 29, concession 9.
No, okay, that's why it didn't seem. There are no issues for entrance on the proposed severance. So that one is. Are there any questions from? Is there anything you'd like to add, Doug?
Just for information, when we issue building permits, we do MDS ones anyway to determine distancing from livestock facilities. It's an automatic thing that happens under the building code. The same with septic approvals. They're required to have their approvals prior to issuance of a permit.
can you give me a holler back tomorrow morning?
All right. Are there any comments or questions from the committee?
No, I have none.
Sorry.
You have none. You have none, member.
Are the cattle the owners' cattle?
Thank you, you're a sweetheart.
Yes.
Sorry, Doug, are you on mute? I didn't hear what you said.
No, I'm not on mute. I said when he applies for a building permit on the retained lands, we'll do an MDS to make sure he's away from anything in the area. We automatically do that.
Yeah, I believe the barn is to the southwest of this site, if I remember correctly, and the severed lot is already has an existing dwelling on it, and then the large piece where Kevin wishes to build on has sufficient depth that I'm sure we can find a suitable building location, no matter what the MDS formula will turn up as.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I have none.
All right. Any questions from you or concerns, Mr. Goodrich?
No, none whatsoever. The only thing I would mention is the north boundary of the proposed new lot. When I spoke with Kevin, he would like it taken to an existing fence line at the rear of the house. And, obviously we don't do the survey until after we get the approval. So the final depth of the lot may be slightly different than what's shown on the sketch. It is just a sketch, but it may be, right now we show it as 240 meters. It could be 250, 260, it could be 230. We're basically going to that physical feature that's there on the ground. But we'll still have clearly more than the minimum lot area, and we're not going to be changing the frontage requirement whatsoever.
Okay, thank you. So I will read the motion. I would need a mover and a seconder.
I move.
Moved by
Second.
Member Paquette, and second by Member Rowe. that the Planning Advisory Committee recommends to Council that the consent application B8 2021 Kevin Rose be approved with the following conditions. 1, that this approval applies to the transfer as applied for which shows 1 new lot on part of Lot 29, Concession 9, Parcel 12080 NIP. 2, that the following documents be provided. An original executed transfer, a duplicate original, and 1 photocopy for our records. B, a copy of the survey plan deposited in the Lands Title Office if required. C, an electronic copy of the survey emailed to cboplanner@bonfieldtownship.org. D, a schedule describing the severed parcel attached to the transfer for approval purposes. 3, if there is a forest road situation, a 20-meter road allowance or whatever amount is required for the road purposes shall be transferred to the municipality at the owner's expense across the whole lot or parcel for which severance was taken, and compensation shall be awarded as per the compensation grid for the transfer of forest roads. 4, that the building setbacks for all buildings must meet the requirements of the zoning bylaw for the retained and/or severed lots, whichever are affected at the time of survey. 5, a fee of 5% in lieu of parkland dedicated for each transfer document shall be deposited in the office of the clerk prior to the stamping of any transfer document regarding a subdivision or a consent for each new lot. For the purpose of determining the amount of pay, the pay grid to determine payment of up to 5% in lieu of land to be conveyed for park and/or recreation purposes shall apply. 6, if any, all tax arrears must be paid prior to the stamping of transfer documents for a new lot. 7, no further severances shall be taken from the parcels unless a plan of subdivision. There are 3 notes here. First note, a certificate of approval as required under the Ontario Regulation 33212 of the Ontario Building Code Act for a sewage disposal system must be obtained prior to the development of the property. Second note, a development interference with wetlands and alteration to the shoreline and watercourse permit may be required from the North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority prior to the undertaking any development of the property. Third note, an entrance permit may be required from the Township of Bonfield Public Works Department prior to development of the property. Any questions? All in favor? Oh, sorry, Doug, go ahead, but you're on mute.
No, I just noticed here that condition number 7,
Yes?
that should not be there. That's only there whenever there's,
I can't hear you,
that's only there whenever there's up to 3 lots taken off.
right?
That should be
And
removed.
it shouldn't be there? So would you like us to stroke number 7 off?
Up to use, but I would recommend it because you can come back and say that the official plan says that they can have up to 3.
Okay, but there hasn't been 3 taken off of this property so far. So I've taken number 7 off. Is that all right with the committee?
Yes,
Thank you. So all in favor?
yes,
Thank you. Carrie? So we'll move to consent number B9 2021, Richard Bourdon for lot addition of part of lot 15, concession 9 being parts 1 and 2 of plan 36R 13025, zone rural, comments from Bonfield Public Works attached. North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority comments to follow. Okay, so everyone has reviewed this application. And notes from conservation. This property is found within the Keboscong River watersheds. A tributary and associated wetland for the Keboscong River are found on the retained lands. These features are regulated by the Conservation Authority under Ontario Regulation 17706. This regulation is pursuant to the Section 38 of the Conservation Authority Act of Ontario. It is required that the property owners obtain a development, interference, and wetlands and alteration to shoreline and watercourse permit from the office prior to undertaking any site alteration activities and or any construction or renovation work within approximately 30 meters of this tributary. There are no natural hazard features associated with the severed lands. Due to the size of the retained lands, there are multiple locations for replacement Class 4 sewage systems should one be required in the future. There are no concerns with the proposed lot addition and future servicing of these lots. Please be advised that prior to development of the vacant properties, a sewage system permit be required under the Ontario Regulations 32212 of the Ontario Building Code. The Conservation Authority is satisfied with this application, is consistent with the policies as set out in sections 2 and 3 of the PPS, Provincial Policy Statement. Notes from our Public Works. Reports for planning. As per conversation, I did not do one for this slot for Bourdon. And I guess I'll let you talk to that, Doug.
Okay, because we're not creating new lots. It's a lot addition to existing lots. So there's no need for her to comment on that.
Do I have any questions from the committee?
No.
Yes, yes, Member Foisey.
Yeah, it doesn't mention if the lot has been severed or not beforehand, like the two others. Or does it apply here? Or?
These are lot additions. They're not creating new lots, so it does not apply.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Okay, thank you.
Any other question?
No.
Okay, so I will move. We'll need a mover and seconder to read the recommendation. Moved by
Move.
Member Paquette, seconded by Member Rowe. That the Planning Advisory Committee recommends to Council that the consent application B9 2021 Richard Bourdon be approved with the following conditions. 1, that this approval applies to the transfer as applied for which shows lot additions to part Lot 15, Concession 9 being part of 1 and 2 on 36R 13025 from part of Lot 15, Concession 9 being parcel 173 NIP. 2, that the following documents be provided. A, the original executed transfer, a duplicate, an original, and 1 copy for our records. B, a copy of the survey plan deposited in the land title office. C, a schedule describing the severed parcel and naming the grantor and grantee attached to the transfer for approval purposes. D, an electronic copy of the survey emailed to cboPlanner@bonfieldtownship.org. E, that the building setbacks for all buildings must meet the requirements of the zoning bylaw for the retained and or severed lots, whichever are affected at the time of survey. 3, that 0.3 meters squares of property be transferred from the frontage of part 1 and 2 on plan 36R 13025, part of lot 15, concession 9, to the corporation of the Township of Bonfield prior to the transferring of the lot additions in order to ensure that the lot addition is consolidated with the balance of part 1 and 2 on plan 36R 13025, part lot 15, concession 7. There are 2 notes. Because this consent application is for a lot addition pursuant to section 50(12) of the Planning Act, subsections 3 and 5 shall apply to any subsequent conveyance, or transaction. This will be indicated on the transfer upon endorsement by the Township of Bonneville. Note 2. A development, interference in wetland, and alteration to shoreline and water courses permit may be required from the North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority prior to undertaking any development on the property. So I have one question. Not note 3, that 0.3 meters square property be transferred frontage. What does that mean?
Hey, what that means is they've already had severances out there. And what they're doing now is adding to an existing severance. Once a severance, always a severance. Okay. In order to break that severance apart so it's not a severance, you take 1 square foot, then it's not a severance, so that the lot addition will consolidate with it. Otherwise, the lot addition will be standalone and you'll have a landlocked piece of property back there. That's why we need to have that 1 foot square. Good news is the law is changing, but it hasn't changed yet. I just verified again with Mr. Belboom. And that may be a thing of the past in a very short future. So we don't have to do that anymore, and that they will merge. But until I get the details and the regulation is passed, there's no point in giving it to you because I haven't got anything. But once I do, I will give it to you, and then that could change. That and a few other things in the planning app.
Thank you. That explains it. Thank you. I knew it. I just couldn't explain it. Any questions from any member of the committee?
No.
Okay. All in favor?
Thank you, everyone.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, so that goes on to road closure application. There's an application to license. There's none of that. Zone change applications, it's just for our information. Does anyone have any questions regarding these zone changes?
No.
No? They will be going forth to council, but they were brought to the planning committee just for our information. And I value your opinions, so if there's anything that you'd like to say, now's the time.
I'm good.
All right, Tom?
Good.
You good, Mary, too? Okay, so I guess that does, is there anything else, Doug, that you'd like to mention during our meeting? Is there anything that we need to know?
Well, there's nothing else coming up, but I do have applications for another meeting coming up next month, just so you're aware. There's more coming in for right-of-ways and different things that will be on that agenda.
All right, we had a meeting, North Bay Mattawa Conservation Authority. I'm a board member, and our applications that were 31 last year are up last week to 121 this year. Like it's, you know, we're a very busy committee, and it's like that across, I believe, probably across all of Ontario. So I thank my committee for being here and helping us have a quorum. I'm very grateful to you. I just thought I'd let you know.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite.
You're welcome. So if that's everything, then I will adjourn the meeting. So I need a mover and seconder. Moved by Member Fwissy, seconded by Member Paquette. That the meeting of the Planning Advisory Committee be adjourned at 5:04. All in favor?
Yes.
And carry. I thank everyone that attended.
Right.
Good to see everyone again, and good night. Thanks
Good
again.
night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Jane, I'll put everything in your box tomorrow, okay? And then
I
I'll
will.
send you an email, let you know.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, Doug.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Good night.
Ned.
Right. 500